Hi friends! In today's video, I will be sharing with you 3 steps that I take whenever I feel I want to procrastinate, and hopefully it can help you to beat your procrastination as well. So how this conversation has sparked was when I was talking to one of my friends who is doing a master's at Cambridge right now, and she was telling me how she's really struggling with finishing her grad paper, which is like 15,000 word essay, and she was just like, Timmy, I'm so overwhelmed. I just keep on putting it off to the side because I just don't feel I'm motivated to write this humongous essay. And she feel like she just keep on wanting to put it on the back burner and not think about it. And then as we were talking more about like why she feel that way, we've identified a pattern where it's whenever you have a lot to do, you have a lot on your plate, that makes you feel you're overwhelmed. And then because you're overwhelmed, you want to get rid of this feeling of feeling anxious and feeling overwhelmed. So then you procrastinate, say, I will just put it on the side, I'll go do something else. And then that's how this cycle begins, and it's just an endless cycle. So here are the 3 steps that I will be sharing with you today that hopefully ends that cycle. And the first step I take is I write everything down. What I mean by that is from a podcast that I've recently heard from Mel Robbins. I will also link it in the description below. She and her guest speaker was talking a lot about like anxiety and stress. And then the one key thing that I've learned from that podcast was how they said that when you have a lot of things that you want to do, your brain is wired to keep on thinking about those things so that it makes sure that you don't forget about it. But as you're constantly thinking about those things that you need to do, you're on this endless track that you keep on running to, wanting to remember the things that you need to do. And then your brain is so occupied with all of those, and that's how all these stress or overwhelmed feelings build up, and you end up not being able to complete anything. So what I do is when I have a lot on my plate and I start to sense that like, oh wow, I'm like getting to a point where I think this is going to be out of hand with amount of stuff I need to do, I write all of them down. Because once you write those things that were in your brain onto a piece of paper or on the notes app on your phone, you realize, wait, this is actually doable. It's not that bad. And a simple example I will give is like, maybe on like a weekend, you have all these errands that you got to run. Like you have to do your laundry, maybe you have to go to the bank, you have to like vacuum, got a meal prep, and all of this thing build up. And you feel like, oh wait, I don't know how I'm going to finish all of these. But once you write them down, you're like, wait, this is actually not as bad as I thought. So it's really important to write everything down because it helps to clear out the things that you actually have in your brain onto a piece of paper, so your brain can actually function properly to try to plan out how you're gonna make all of those things work. Which brings on to my second step, is to learn how to prioritize based on your own personal preference, but also set realistic timeline. There are always tasks where you enjoy doing more than the others. I think that applies to everyone. For me personally, I like to do the things I enjoy more first, and then I slowly build my way up to doing the more difficult tasks. You could be the completely opposite. You could be like, I want to conquer the most difficult tasks first, and then as my week or your day goes on, you start to do the things that you enjoy more. Totally fine. But what I want to highlight is that you have a priority list so that it keeps you grounded and you know that you have a plan to conquer all of these tasks. The second part of setting realistic timeline is you don't want it to be very big, like I want to finish everything by today, or like I want to finish everything by Friday. When it's vague, it's very hard to action them. And here I will walk you through an example that I usually do, and then the example I will give is when you submit an essay. So let's say your essay due date is on the 27th, and let's say today's date is the 17th. So today's date is the 16th. Let's say it's the Monday, and you're like planning this out like on the weekend. You're like, how am I gonna do in the next 2 weeks to finish my essay? So then how I would like to do it is I would like to work my timeline backwards. So if my due date is on the 27th, I usually say by the 25th, I want to finish my essay. I always like to give myself a little buffer in case anything happen. So I will aim to have the 25th finished, to have my entire essay finished. So then I'll be like, okay, so if that's the case, I probably should have roughly like the entire structure done by the 23rd. So I will say structure done. So what I mean by that is like, let's say you have the 3 main supporting arguments that you support your main idea. So then I'll be like, okay, so I will have the structure done, meaning all the main ideas, the supporting arguments are done. I just need to put them together. Okay, so if I want to have the structure done, then I'll probably give myself the weekend to do the research and kind of like put all of my like random thoughts into place. So then I'll say, let's say on the Saturday, I'll be like research. So then how I would research, probably I would need to really think about what are the 3 supporting arguments I want to write about to support my main idea. So I'll be okay, so let's say by Thursday, I will have the 3 main argument done. And then so I'll probably start thinking about my idea, let's say on Tuesday. And then Monday could just be like a day where it's kind of like generating certain thing, and then finding your main thesis or center piece of how you want to approach your essay. So this is how I would approach writing an essay. And the one really good tactic I've always used throughout university and even at work is if I have a certain deadline, I always try to make the deadline in my head to be 2 or 3 days earlier. Because first, I find comfort in knowing there's a buffer in everything I do, but that's just like a personal thing. You don't have to do that. But why I say this tactic is really good is once I've trained my brain to believe in those deadlines that I've set for myself, then I'm more like, I'm more accustomed to being able to finish them on time because I have those days as buffer. But more importantly, once I believe those are the deadline, I will try to work towards those deadlines. And in case anything happens, I still have a couple of days to actually catch up if something happened. So that's a really good tactic, is to always set your own timeline to be 2 or 3 days before the actual due date. So that's the second step I would take, is to prioritize and set realistic timeline. Now, before I share my final thoughts, if you made this far into my video, I hope that you found my content somewhat helpful, and I would really appreciate if you can like and subscribe to my channel. The final step I would take is I always prepare some sort of rewards for myself at the end of the finishing line. I'm always a bit more motivated when that's the case. So let's say on a weekend, I have all these house chores I gotta do. I will say, once I finish all of them, then I can go out for dinner with my friends. Or I'll be like, I'm gonna go grab ice cream. Where I say, then I can go climb. So those are all different little incentives that I give myself to be a bit more motivated than just doing the chores. And again, it doesn't have to be something so grand. It could just be like small tidbits that you feel that's gonna make you more happy, or that makes you feel like, oh, that's something I wanna do after all these things that I didn't wanna do. So that's the final step I would take. But to conclude, what I really want to send the message today is that all of the things I've shared are really good tools to use when you feel overwhelmed or feel stressed and that you want to procrastinate. It's a really good structure to have. But ultimately, what I've done over the years is to build this really good mindset where I try to approach everything with positivity and try to internally motivate myself to do everything that I do. And the mindset I have is a strong belief in that everything I do is for the purpose of becoming a better version of myself. And I will explain. So let's say I'm filming a YouTube video or I'm just doing like a meal prep. I might want to procrastinate a little, but how I've come to peace with all of those is, like, for example, making YouTube videos because I want to become better at articulating my thoughts, where I want to share these learnings that I've learned with someone in the hopes that maybe I help someone out there. And then meal prep is, let's say I want to have a healthier lifestyle. I don't want to just keep on going out to eat. So what I've tried to do is, no matter what I do, I try to find meaning and purpose behind those tasks. And ultimately, I have become to a point where I'm like, everything I do is for the sake of myself, and because I want to become a better version of me, and all these things are helping me to reach that end goal, I don't want to procrastinate. And once you find that internal motivation, I think it becomes a really healthy pattern to going from wanting to procrastinate to not wanting to, because your end goal has changed. It's not just about like finishing something or like completing something, but you have treated it as a stepping stone to become a better version of yourself. And I hope that one day you can find those internal motivation in you too. That's all from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.